Hello, I'm Lou Brown and you're watching AnewZ. Let's take a look at today's top stories. For the first time in nearly 6 decades, a Syrian president steps up to speak at the United Nations. A shooting at a Texas immigration facility kills 1 detainee and seriously injures 2 others. And former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is found guilty of criminal conspiracy in his Libya trial. We start at the United Nations at a landmark occasion as Syria's President Ahmed al-Shara addressed the UN General Assembly, marking the first time any president from his country has done so in almost 60 years. In his speech, al-Shara blasted Israel, saying it has not yet stopped its threats against his country since the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Negotiations have been underway for a security deal that al-Shara says he hopes will bring about a withdrawal of Israeli forces from Syria. Now, the US Special Envoy for Syria, Tom Barrack, has announced that a de-escalation deal between the two countries is nearly complete.
US Special Envoy for Syria, Tom Barrack, said Syria and Israel are close to reaching a de-escalation agreement. The deal would see Israel halting its attacks on Syria, while Syria would agree not to move machinery or heavy equipment near the Israeli border. Barrack's announcement comes as Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Shara made an appearance at the United Nations 81st General Assembly, making it the first Syrian presidential address in nearly 6 decades. Al-Shara said his country is committed to dialogue and described Israel's attacks as a threat to the region.
Israeli strikes and attacks against my country continue, and Israeli policies contradict the international supporting position for Syria, which threatens new crises and struggles in our region for this purpose. And in face of this aggression, Syria has committed to dialogue, and we're committed to the disengagement of forces agreement of 1974, and we call on the international community to stand beside us in face of these attacks.
Israel's Prime Minister's office confirmed that negotiations were being held with Syria, but stated that the conclusions were contingent upon ensuring Israel's interests, which include the demilitarization of southwestern Syria and safeguarding the well-being and security of the Druze in Syria. Under US pressure, Syria is accelerating talks with Israel for a security pact that Damascus hopes will reverse Israel's recent seizures of its land, but that would fall far short of a full peace treaty.
Moving to the US, a gunman who carried out a fatal shooting at an immigration facility in Texas left a bullet engraved with the phrase "anti-ICE." The attack happened at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office and left 2 people dead, including the gunman. It's now being investigated as an act of, quote, targeted violence.
After the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Arizona, another shooting has struck the country, this time in Texas. On Wednesday, a 29-year-old man opened fire at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Dallas. The attack left 1 detainee dead and 2 others critically injured. The shooter, identified as Joshua John, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities said John left behind ammunition marked with the phrase "anti-ICE" written in blue ink.
We responded to the call, got to the scene, and we later learned that we had 4 individuals that were shot, 2 of them deceased, including the shooter. The DPD was able to locate the shooter, who was deceased. We're going to be working this investigation shoulder to shoulder with our federal partners. The FBI is on scene.
The exact motive for the attack remains under investigation. However, the Republican sides identify it as a radical left attack. President Donald Trump said on social media that he would sign an order to shut down domestic terrorism groups and told Democrats to stop speaking against ICE. Vice President J.D. Vance also weighed in on the incident, strongly condemning the attack.
We know this person was politically motivated. They were politically motivated to go after law enforcement. They were politically motivated to go after people who are enforcing our border. And I think that is the most disgusting thing. The very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It is time to stop the rhetorical assault on law enforcement. Because here's what happened.
The Dallas Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office that came under gunfire on Wednesday morning will not have migrant check-ins until Monday.
Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been found guilty of criminal conspiracy in a case related to taking millions of euros of illicit funds from the late Libyan leader Gaddafi. The Paris Criminal Court acquitted him of all other charges, including passive corruption and illegal campaign financing. Sarkozy, who claims the case is politically motivated, was accused of using the funds from Gaddafi to finance his 2007 election campaign. In exchange, the prosecution alleged Sarkozy promised to help Gaddafi combat his reputation as a pariah with Western countries. Since losing his re-election bid in 2012, Sarkozy has been targeted by several criminal investigations. At least 20 people have been injured in Israel's southern city of Eilat following a drone attack by Yemen's Houthi group. Local media report that Israel's air defense system failed to intercept the drone, which struck a busy hotel area, causing damage and panic among tourists. The attack comes just days after another drone strike by the Iran-backed Houthis, though no casualties were reported. The group claimed responsibility, calling the attack an act of solidarity with Palestinians.
The drone air force of the Houthi armed forces carried out a significant military operation using 2 drones targeting Israeli enemy targets in the area of al-Rashrash, south of occupied Palestine. The operation successfully achieved its objectives thanks to God, while the interception systems failed to counter it.
Now, British authorities have detained a man in his 40s over a series of cyber attacks that affected flights at major European airports. The attacks targeted the service provider for check-in and boarding systems, causing flight delays and cancellations. Officials have called the arrest a positive step, but said the investigation is still in its early stages and remains ongoing. Looking to Europe, drone sightings have triggered airport closures across northern Europe this week, with Denmark and Norway on high alert amid fears of coordinated hybrid attacks. Authorities are investigating links to NATO airspace violations, while Moscow denies involvement.
Denmark has temporarily closed Aalborg Airport, a key hub for both civilian and military flights, after unauthorised drones were spotted in its airspace late Wednesday. It is the second such disruption in the country within a week. 3 smaller airports in southern Denmark also reported drone activity, but remained open. The incident follows a similar drone incursion that shut down Copenhagen Airport for 4 hours earlier this week, which officials described as the most severe attack on Danish infrastructure to date. Authorities say the latest incidents bear the hallmarks of a coordinated hybrid attack. Norway also briefly closed its main airport in Oslo this week after a drone was detected. Speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, Norwegian Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide said investigators have not linked the Danish and Norwegian drone incidents, but warned they may be connected and part of rising hybrid threats facing NATO.
We need to be alert and ready to connect the dots when we see them. And this is something we've been discussing domestically in our new national security strategy. It's also very high on the NATO agenda to be aware and able to precisely connect the dots and take the appropriate measures.
The disruptions come amid rising security concerns across Europe, as several NATO members, including Estonia, Poland and Romania, have reported suspected Russian airspace violations. The Kremlin dismissed allegations of Russian involvement in the drone activity as unfounded.
Staying in the country, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has formally apologised to Inuit women subject to involuntary birth control for decades. Frederiksen said the acknowledgement marks an effort to repair strained ties with Greenland.
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen travelled to Nuuk on Wednesday to deliver an official apology for a decades-long birth control campaign imposed on Greenlandic Inuit women. Calling it a dark chapter in our shared history, Frederiksen stated on a social media post, the apology was an important step toward healing. During the 1960s and 70s, thousands of women, nearly half of those of childbearing age, were forced to wear intrauterine devices without consent. Many were left sterile, while others suffered long-term physical and psychological harm. The scandal remains one of several painful episodes straining Denmark's relationship with its Arctic territory, alongside cases of forced adoptions and child removals. Copenhagen is seeking to repair ties with resource-rich Greenland, which has strategic significance internationally. Alongside the apology, on Monday, Frederiksen announced a reconciliation fund to compensate victims and others who face discrimination for their Inuit heritage.
To a major diplomatic moment, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger say they are leaving the International Criminal Court, accusing it of bias and neo-colonialism.
3 West African countries, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, have announced plans to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. The military-led governments issued a joint statement calling the Hague-based tribunal an instrument of neo-colonial repression and accusing it of selective justice. The ICC was created in 2002 to prosecute individuals for genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes and aggression. It is intended to act when national courts are unwilling or unable to prosecute. Out of 33 cases brought since its inception, most have involved African countries, fueling long-standing criticism of anti-African bias. Withdrawal from the ICC takes effect 1 year after formal notification to the United Nations. The decision mirrors the 3 states' earlier exit from the West African bloc ECOWAS, as they push to build their own regional institutions under the Alliance of Sahel states. The current authorities of these countries say the court has failed to deliver genuine justice and instead reinforces outside influence over African nations. They argue the withdrawal is a step toward building their own systems of peace and accountability.
Now, at least 4 people have been killed and dozens injured following violent clashes between police and protesters in India's northern Ladakh region. The demonstrators took to the streets to demand greater autonomy for the territory. Officials say more than 30 police personnel were injured and that officers fired shots in self-defense. Restrictions on gatherings have been imposed, banning assemblies of more than 4 people. Typhoon Ragasa, the strongest storm of the year, has struck the Asia region, killing at least 20 people. It's forced thousands to evacuate, leaving streets deserted and homes destroyed.
Landfalls, heavy rains, floods and devastated homes. Super Typhoon Ragasa continues to wreak havoc across Asia. Last numbers show that at least 20 people dead during Ragasa typhoon in Taiwan and the Philippines. The death toll is expected to rise as search and rescue operations continue. Power outages and blocked roads have further complicated relief efforts. The storm earlier passed near the Chinese territories of Hong Kong and Macau, where fierce winds woke residents during the night. Schools and flights were cancelled and many businesses were closed. Before reaching Hong Kong, Ragasa had brought devastation to parts of Taiwan and the Philippines. In Taiwan's eastern Hualien County, the typhoon caused a barrier lake to burst its banks, sending water gushing into nearby Guangfu Township. Muddy torrents destroyed a bridge, turning the roads in Guangfu into churning rivers that carried vehicles and furniture away. Ragasa was downgraded from a super to a severe typhoon on Wednesday, but it remains highly destructive. Emergency services have rescued over 8,000 people, but power outages and blocked roads continue to hamper relief efforts.
To East Asia, President Xi Jinping has set out China's new climate plan, pledging to cut the country's emissions by 7 to 10% by 2035. China, responsible for nearly 30% of global emissions, had previously pledged to peak its carbon output, but had never set a specific numerical goal. President Xi added that wind and solar power would expand sixfold. He stressed these efforts meet Paris climate change goals, but called for international cooperation. Welcome back to AnewZ. Now, at the UN General Assembly, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky urged nations to send weapons, not words, to support Ukraine's defense against Russian aggression. On the sidelines, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio met Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, telling Moscow's delegation that, quote, the killing must stop in Ukraine. Also on the agenda, the war in Gaza. Italy condemned an overnight drone attack on the global Samund flotilla, a 52-boat aid convoy traveling through international waters en route to deliver aid to Gaza, and ordered a Navy frigate to protect Italian citizens on board. The flotilla accused Israel of a dangerous escalation after explosions, drones, and signal jamming were reported off Crete. Spain also pledged naval protection for Gaza aid, while Italy reaffirmed support for a two-state solution, though with conditions. Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara became the first Syrian leader in nearly 6 decades to address the UNGA, demanding an end to sanctions. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian rejected nuclear accusations while casting Tehran as a partner against Israeli aggression. Across Africa and smaller nations, calls grew louder for UN Security Council reform, challenging the dominance of its 5 permanent members. With lots to discuss, we are joined by Enrique Cosoro, political analyst from Madrid, Spain. Enrique, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with the events, well, the latest events off the island of Crete. After a reported drone attack on the Gaza flotilla and Italy deploying a frigate, is this crisis becoming an international flashpoint? Could this trigger direct confrontation between Israel and European powers? Does this go beyond words now?
I don't think that the flotilla is going to be not right now, an international incident or sort of a new struggle with Israel. I mean, there are people volunteering for going to Gaza to deliver help and food and medical aid. So that's fine. But Israel has been very explicit, saying that there is no way that the flotilla is gonna break the blockade that the Israel Navy is holding right now around the coast. So the problem is not happening right now. Spain and Italy are escorting the flotilla in order to get safe or to have a safe travel to Israel, to Gaza. But at this point, it's not gonna be an easy negotiation when the flotilla arrives to the shores of Gaza, because two different navies or 3 different navies are going to be implicated on whatever is going to be, which are Israel, Spanish, and Italian. So there is a trouble. I don't think that neither Italy or nor Spain are going to do anything against the Israeli Navy. It's just an escort for, okay, if there is some drone attack over the flotilla, let's gonna try to clear that up, and let's gonna protect the flotilla for any further damage. But an international conflict in front of the coast of Israel, I don't see it. And at some point, both of them, Italy and the Spanish Navy, are gonna retreat at some point, trying not to get into trouble. Even more, probably those navies are going to try to negotiate with the flotilla commanders in order not to commit any sort of reckless action.
Some interesting points there. I want to draw your attention back to the UNGA now, if I may. Many countries have set different conditions for Palestinian statehood, like Germany, Italy, as opposed to the UK and France. Is the G7 splitting over Palestinian recognition? How much are their disagreements going to make it harder for Palestinian statehood to come into effect in real terms, such as defined borders, currencies, things like this?
Yep, we're assuming that the G7 is sort of a tight group, and it is not, obviously. And just from the beginning of the Trump last presidency, current presidency, in which one of the first countries threatened with tariffs was Canada, and Canada is part of the G7. So there are not that friends, or it's not a tight group, right? Here, the United States and Donald Trump is feeding that past relationship with Israel and Bibi Netanyahu, which is expected. It's not weird. It's not sort of what an unexpected turn of events. It is not. But on the other side, on the other countries, some of them wants to recognize or have recognized the state of Palestine, or Palestine as a state, which is fine. But we have to remember that happened in 1947 with 181 resolution of the UN, and the Arabs said no. We want the whole land. We don't want to split the land. We want the whole land. It happened afterwards in 1998 and, if I remember right, 2003, which is, for me, this raises the first question, which is, do really the Palestinians want to have a state in the current conditions? Or they're gonna try to, I don't know, place any excuse in order to say, again, if we don't have the whole land, we're not gonna accept having an own land for same in some way. So it's for me, a lot of countries are saying, okay, Palestine has the right to be in state, and they have the right to be in a state, but the solution is not only an acceptance by Israel. It's an acceptance by Palestine, which means it's an acceptance by Hamas, because we know Mahmoud Abbas is in the presidency of Palestine for, I think, 13 or 14 years now, and he proves no way or no ambition or no way of managing the country or govern the country, right? So the question here is, just imagine that 200 countries in the world say, okay, even the United States, they say Palestine must be a state, a free state, an independent state from whatever. And
Enrique, if I may, just because we're running out of time, and do forgive me for jumping around foreign policy, what it might sound like, but I do want to shift our attention now towards another talking point, which is obviously Russia-Ukraine. With Zelensky demanding weapons and Rubio telling Lavrov the killing must stop, is the US strategy shifting from pure military aid to pressing for talks? What's the next step? Is Russia almost testing international unity, resolve?
Oh, the United States with Ukraine, as much as the United States has been doing with Israel, is sort of a back and forth, trying to fix the problem, but not getting the hands dirty in it. It's sort of, I think Donald Trump is trying to put some pressure, but as soon as the other party is saying no way or starts playing, Donald Trump is gonna retreat in some way. So probably we are closer to, I don't want to say closer, but probably we are closer for not an agreement, but for some talks between Russia and Ukraine than Israel and Palestine, right? If just because we were talking about these two conflicts right now, but I think that Zelensky is not losing the hope, and at some point Donald Trump was tough on Russia on the UN. Well, Donald Trump was tough on everybody on the UN, especially, but also with Russia. Probably they're gonna put some tools in order to reach an agreement. But as I always have been saying, the question here for Russia is not only having Crimea and the Donbass. It's also trying to provide a very, very, very slow Ukrainian recovery. Russia doesn't want something similar to the Marshall Plan for Europe in the 40s and the 50s. So Vladimir Putin is going to say, okay, let's gonna talk about the truce. Let's gonna talk about peace and the end of conflict. But I don't want a speeding recovery of Ukraine. And I think that is the most crucial point in this situation right now.
Now, thank you for those insights, but just to jump yet again to another moment at the UNGA, and I do apologize for doing this, but how significant is al-Shara's appearance, the first Syrian president to speak at the UNGA since 1967? How significant is that for Damascus's bid to break diplomatic isolation and lift sanctions?
Of course, it's huge because it means that Syria wants a place in the international scenario and in the international stage, and for that is a very important step. But we have to remember that al-Assad was a dictatorship, and his father before him for 60, 70 years. And the dictatorship of both father and son was holding by force the country together, right? United. Right now, al-Shara is facing a tribal or communities or sort of different groups and tribes, if you want to call it that way, trying to keep them together, try to come along in the idea of a country, which is for me is really, really tough. But it's in some way is a big part of the Middle East reality. I mean, we saw that under a dictatorship and under the force and the martial law and all the discrimination possible in the country is the way that the two previous dictators considered that they're gonna hang tight the country. And right now, al-Shara is trying to do not the impossible, but it's a very, very hard task. And I hope the best for him, because I know the task is not going to be easy.
Well, Enrique, sadly, we have run out of time, but I want to thank you for also dealing with 3 separate different foreign policy issues. Thank you very much for your insights today.
What do you need? Thank you very much.
Welcome back to AnewZ. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, President Ilham Aliyev has met with world leaders and top global investors. The talks focused on strengthening Azerbaijan's economic ties, attracting foreign investment, and promoting regional cooperation.
Amid the bustling diplomatic activity at the UN General Assembly in New York, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has been meeting with counterparts and global business leaders to strengthen partnerships and attract investment. On the business front, Aliyev met with Michael Arogeti, CEO of AnewZ Management, to explore ways to strengthen Azerbaijan's financial markets and attract foreign investment. Potential joint projects in alternative investments, green energy, logistics, and infrastructure were highlighted as key areas for collaboration. Aliyev also met with Kush Choksi, Senior Vice President of the US Chamber of Commerce, highlighting Azerbaijan-US strategic partnership and discussing energy, connectivity, and AI to boost business. On the political side, Aliyev met with Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa to discuss regional peace in the South Caucasus and agreed to strengthen bilateral cooperation and maintain regular dialogue. Talks with Bulgarian Prime Minister Rosen Gerliazkov focused on expanding energy cooperation and exploring new partnership opportunities, reflecting strong and constructive bilateral relations. President Aliyev also met with Jenny Johnson, CEO of Franklin Templeton, to enhance Azerbaijan's access to global capital markets. Johnson praised the country's investor-friendly environment and opportunities in infrastructure and renewable energy. Finally, Aliyev met with Adebayo Ogunlesi, CEO of Global Infrastructure Partners, to explore collaboration in infrastructure, energy transition, and digital connectivity. The sides highlighted their successful partnership since 2024, including joint investments like Italy's Italo high-speed rail.
Focusing on Kazakhstan, the country has called for UN Security Council reform so it would include major countries from Asia, Africa and Latin America. In a speech at the UN, Kazakh president also spoke on the need to strengthen the United Nations and urged countries to work together to preserve the Caspian Sea.
Kazakhstan calls for reform of the UN Security Council and its expansion to include major countries from Asia, Africa and Latin America. This was stated by President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev during his speech at the 80th session of the UN General Assembly in New York. In his address, the head of state emphasized that the crisis of trust in multilateral institutions demands urgent and decisive action instead of simple discussion. A comprehensive reform of the UN is a strategic necessity. The president also proposed strengthening the role of middle powers. Amid growing geopolitical tensions, these nations can act as bridges of trust between major players. President Tokayev noted that without concrete steps toward lasting peace and security, the organization will only mitigate the consequences while the root causes of global conflicts continue to multiply. Specific figures were also highlighted. Global military spending in 2024 reached $2.7 trillion. In response to rising international security threats, Kazakhstan expressed readiness to host a new international dialogue on nuclear disarmament and reaffirmed its support for the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. The president also reaffirmed Kazakhstan's commitment to diplomacy over force, expressed concern over the Ukrainian crisis and the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, and stressed the importance of protecting civilians. He also emphasized that territorial disputes in such conditions require responsibility and restraint for the sake of future generations. President Tokayev's political message included a call to reject the language of civilizational clashes. He stated that leadership should be based on respect and dialogue, not suspicion and arrogance. In conclusion, the president emphasized that Kazakhstan will continue to advocate for a path of balance and cooperation.
Kazakhstan will continue to serve as a bridge builder and peacemaker. It will also continue to choose balance over domination, cooperation over confrontation, and peace over war. We stand ready in cooperation with other players, stakeholders in the international community to renew the promise of the United Nations as a beacon of peace, justice, and cooperation.
Notably, the president's schedule in New York was packed with over 20 meetings held with presidents, ministers and heads of international organizations and companies. The discussions covered a wide range of topics from agriculture, education and sports to investments and artificial intelligence. Kazakhstan secured agreements aimed at attracting significant investments. 11 deals and memorandums were signed with major U.S. companies promising investments valued at $5.2 billion in key sectors such as transport, logistics, energy and IT. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, AnewZ.
Staying with diplomacy at the UN General Assembly, Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev held talks with other world leaders, signed deals with the United States, and made efforts to advance Uzbekistan's cooperation with the World Trade Organization and the United Nations. Our Seville Rajapova has more.
At the 80th UN General Assembly in New York, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev focused on strengthening Uzbekistan's global partnerships through active diplomacy. During his meeting with US President Donald Trump, the sides outlined priority areas for deepening the strategic partnership, including regional issues and cooperation in aviation, mining, finance, innovation, and energy. A roundtable with American companies also produced 10 agreements in these sectors with Boeing, Citigroup, FL Smith, and Cargill among the signatories. President Mirziyoyev also held meetings with South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung, Albanian President Pejman Begai, King Abdullah II of Jordan, and Czech President Petr Pavel to expand bilateral ties. The talks focused on strengthening strategic partnerships, expanding trade and investment, enhancing technology and industry, developing political and cultural ties, accelerating joint projects and cooperation in innovation, agriculture, and transport. At the multilateral level, President held talks with WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who confirmed that Uzbekistan has completed bilateral negotiations on accession. She noted that the country is expected to become a full WTO member by March 2026. In a meeting with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, President Mirziyoyev reviewed cooperation within the framework of Uzbekistan's Sustainable Development Goals. The side agreed to prepare a new 5-year cooperation program and to strengthen Uzbekistan's role within UN institutions. They also discussed preparing for the upcoming 43rd UNESCO General Conference in Samarkand, which will further highlight Uzbekistan's growing role as a global platform for dialogue and multilateral cooperation. Through these meetings and agreements, Uzbekistan demonstrated its commitment to multilateralism, regional stability, and international cooperation, while reinforcing its position as an active and reliable global partner. It is Seville Vajapov reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, AnewZ.
Now, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has arrived in Moscow on a working visit to attend the World Atomic Week Forum. The event will also bring together international participants, including Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, Myanmar's acting President Min Aung Hlaing, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi, IAEA, as well as representatives from Iran, Uzbekistan, Egypt, Niger, and more. Following the forum, Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to meet with the heads of foreign delegations. Afghanistan is calling on Japan to restart and suspend $34 million water project, first launched back in 2020. The project is seen as vital for addressing the country's growing water needs. For more on this, we go to Kabul and our Tamim Bahis.
Across Kabul, families are increasingly reliant on mobile water tankers as underground reserves dry up. Experts warn this short-term fix may worsen the problem as over-extraction continues to drain aquifers faster than they can recover. The Ministry of Energy and Water has registered more than 200 supply companies, urging them to draw water from rivers or outside the city instead of local wells. Officials say restrictions are also in place for high consumption industries such as factories and car washes. Meanwhile, Afghan leaders are appealing to Japan to resume a suspended water project worth $24 million first launched in 2020, saying the city urgently needs that infrastructure to secure future supplies. Yet the scale of the crisis is staggering. International agencies report that nearly 1/3 of Afghans lack access to safe drinking water, with studies showing up to 80% of Kabul's groundwater is unsafe. A new report warns the capital could become the first modern city to run dry within 5 years. With aquifers nearing collapse, experts stress the need for immediate investment, stronger regulation, and international support before time runs out. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for AnewZ.
Turning to sport, Baku is making history as it hosts the ISU Junior Grand Prix of figure skating for the first time, welcoming rising stars from around the globe. With strong international participation and local hopes on the ice, Azerbaijan steps confidently onto the world stage of winter sports. Our Narchicek Jahingeli reports.
2025 ISU Junior Grand Prix of Figure Skating has officially kicked off in Baku for the very first time. 92 athletes from 38 countries are taking to the ice, including 17 pairs. All are between the ages of 13 and 19.
With elegance, athleticism and pressure high, this is junior skating at its most intense. Here competes emerging talents from all over the world. Many are future Olympians.
Over the next few days, the world's most promising young skaters will compete across singles, pairs and ice dance, all fighting for valuable points toward the Junior Grand Prix final in December, the pinnacle of the junior season.
This event is going to be so successful because Ministry of Sports and Youth and the Minister Gaibo have been very, very supportive in preparing for this event. So we are so looking forward to this weekend.
This is the first time the president of the federation has visited Baku. This also means that the city could potentially host many figure skating championships in the future. I hope we will be able to participate in larger competitions in the coming years.
Azerbaijan is represented in the singles category by Sabina Aliyeva, Leyli Ahundova and Irina Kalugina. In ice dance, Anna O'Brien and Drake Tong will carry the flag. A total of 300 participants, including coaches, judges, technical specialists and officials, have arrived in Baku, making a milestone moment for figure skating in the region.
I think that for figure skating worldwide, it's very important to diverse the geography of the figure skating, of the hosting the event, and today we proudly welcome athletes from 38 countries, and I hope that this will give us an opportunity to host many more high-level competitions.
Among the strongest contenders, we're watching standout entries from Japan, the United States, South Korea, and Canada. The competition schedule continues with the men's free skate and the pairs short dance on September 25th. The following day, September 26th, the women will take the ice for their free programs, while the pairs showcase their free dance performances.
Welcome back to AnewZ. Now it's day one of the UK-Azerbaijan Policy Forum in Baku, bringing together policymakers, diplomats and analysts to assess Britain's engagement in the Caucasus. London and Baku have cultivated a deep partnership over the years, with the UK remaining the largest source of foreign investment in Azerbaijan, particularly in the energy sector. Cooperation is increasingly expanding into new areas such as renewable energy, education, governance, digital infrastructure and financial markets. Keynote speakers have highlighted the need for more Azerbaijani companies to list on the London Stock Exchange alongside Britain's growing role in AI and digital innovation. Head of International Relations Department of Azerbaijani Parliament, Samad Seyedov, drew an interesting comparison between the two nations, describing the United Kingdom as an island embraced by the sea, and Azerbaijan as an island of independence and stability in a troubled geography. The forum also underlines Britain's wider regional approach, including engagement with Armenia and Georgia. London's active backing of the Azerbaijani-Armenia peace process signals its ambition to be a stabilizing actor in the region and a supporter of conflict resolution. To help us unpack the latest developments, we are joined live by Dr. Vatang Masaya, political analyst in Tbilisi, Georgia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Doctor, I want to start
from just about Tbilisi, from GSAC, Georgian Strategic Analysis Center.
Doctor, if I may, how have UK-Azerbaijan relations evolved, and what are the key priorities in today's forum?
Well, just Great Britain historically just been presented to the Caucasus, our region, And nowadays, when just a priority also being, we have like a many challenges, many just about threats which perceived our region. Moreover, this region also just emerged as a very interesting geo-economic just about strata, and the hub of connecting about east-west and north-south corridors. And of course, Great Britain also expressed great interest to fostering and of course developing the investments project, developing transitional and even just continental energy projects, also just promoting about transitional just about logical just about infrastructure development. And of course, just about Great Britain also presented in our region since 1994, when about a century contract was signed, dealing about developing about Azerbaijani oil and gas, just about drills, and of course, Azerbaijan and British cooperation, strategic cooperation, will have been just about reinforcing since that period of time, and nowadays it's become more important. Why? Because Azerbaijan also became just about transit regional international hub, just connecting not only energy, but also just logistics, even just about transit corridors like a middle corridor, like a Zangezur corridor, where also just British expressed great willingness to participate very actively. And of course, Great Britain is like one of the key just about direct foreign investor to Azerbaijan, to Georgia, and of course supported promotion of those energy projects, which we also just know about Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline system, and of course Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railway.
You mentioned there the deep strategic ties and the historical ties. Does Britain still lead as the largest foreign direct investor in Azerbaijan? Who else in Europe might benefit from the middle corridor or could emerge as a key strategic partner as well?
Yes, for sure. Why? Because we have like just about Washington Treaty, and of course, the United States and Great Britain are very key just about strategic allies. They also coordinate their effort in promoting common geopolitical mission and goals, and that's why Great Britain also just come along with United States Trump administration, and they also just promoted just about Western just about community interests by at large. And here, of course, I would like to mention that Great Britain has historical experience how just about Western interests should be preserved in our region, you know, in a way when we have like not a zero-sum game, but we have like a just sum game. That's about where all just about participated actors will just be benefited with engagement and promoting joint project and joint incentives. So this is very important. So Great Britain has biggest experience on its stance rather than just about maybe United States and other just about great actors, even China. So I guess this is trend also promote more Great Britain's very holistic and very just about solid presence at our region.
And I want to ask you, if I may, what role is Britain playing in the Armenian-Azerbaijan peace process?
Oh yes, of course. Well, Great Britain can also just more foster this peace process promotions. Also just promoted just about economic diplomacy provisions, because you know, one hands just about Great Britain can also just have very interesting projects, and also just Great Britain also presented in Armenia, as we are aware, and of course this peaceful and economic and energy diplomacy, it will be one of the main privilege about Great Britain's just engagements and support Azerbaijani and Armenian peace effort, which was also been fortified in ages of the Washington Treaty. So I guess, moreover, United States and Great Britain, they have common cooperation, common collaboration. So that's why just joint effort will also just about helpful on their and our just interests.
And I just want to finish with a my final question, and I do need it as concise an answer as you can give. Another intriguing question raised at the forum today was whether Britain's evolving partnerships with Azerbaijan and Armenia are shaped by broader imperative, and that is containing Iran. Liam Fox, chair of the UK Abraham Accords Group and former Defence Secretary, made specific reference to this concern.
Well, I think so. That's just about the regard about Iran case. Just about American-Iranian relations, so different of the British-Iranian just about relations. And I think so. British about involvement in the regional affairs will not be just about more at harm of the Iranian just about interests, etc. So it will be also just have to promote the dialogue inside of the regional level between the just Caucasian actors like Turkey, Iran, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. So I think so. Just this historic experience will be more important and more dramatic, play a dramatic role in fostering this dialogue cohesion. So I guess Britain has absolutely has a very cautious diplomatic political approach, and more peaceful just about efforts could just be driven to that area. And I guess British could also help to develop more interesting international fora for promotions, that kind of the economic, political, and even just about social, just about projects, which were beneficial to all sides and all actors at the regional level.
Vakhtang, sadly we have run out of time, but I do want to thank you for taking time to speak with us today and providing your insights. Thank you very much. You're up to date with the world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.